I think of the Marines that fought their way back to the 38th parallel in the frozen mountains of Korea, the killing fields of the Chosin Reservoir, as a few fought many, often with sticks and stones and stacked bodies and used them as sandbags. And they get one day to get an omelet from Denny's. Is it just me, or are we taking this a little too far? I mean, California just passed a bill where it is considered child abuse if you don't affirm your child's gender. So, who here has a 5, 6, 7-year-old? How many of them understood any of this stuff? I mean, I have an 8-year-old, my daughter, and she's, I think, now starting to get to where she kind of understands the concept. But when you talk to her about it, because we've talked to her just to see what the schools are teaching, and she's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. The bottom line is, kids are very impressionable. At that age, you can convince a kid of just about anything. They're the easiest people to indoctrinate. I mean, they believe Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy exist, and that's like, I mean, I didn't exactly have to get a Harvard law degree to convince my kid that a tooth fairy was leaving $1 under her pillow whenever her teeth would fall out. So I'm pretty sure if I really wanted to, I could indoctrinate my kid and get her to believe anything I want to believe. One of the things that we're very careful about is we don't push our ideology on our children. Although, as I'm getting older, the more I'm thinking that I should. I honestly think I should. I think if I want my kids to have my values, maybe I should be pushing it on them. But Christina and I, we want our kids to be free thinkers, so we've always been really careful about, not pushing our beliefs on them. We tell them what we believe, we tell them why we believe it, but we also encourage them to think for themselves and do the research. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these concepts, even when you're talking about religion, when you're talking about politics, just family values, even a lot of those concepts are kind of over their head, and so we keep it really basic. And we try to mostly live by example. And that's the crux of it, is however your house lives is whatever your values are, is what the values generally are going to be adopted by your children. And as long as they're, it's not like abusive or harmful, generally speaking, your kids will be aligned with it, especially if it gives them comfort, structure, and the ability to, fosters an environment where they can grow in creativity and love and all that. If you largely ignore your children, or you let the state babysit them, I've seen this a lot with single mothers. They unfortunately, or single parents rather, everybody's got to work, everybody's got to support their family, so a lot of times they'll have to leave their kids in babysitting services and things of that nature. And a lot of parents have mobile devices raise their children for them because it's an easy way to keep them pacified. I'll even admit that I was one of those. So when my daughter was born, Christina and I, we said we would never allow our kids to be stuck on a smartphone, ever. And when they started getting to the age where Delphine required constant attention from mom, and it was just dragging her down, one day she picked up one of the our tablets, and she was just quietly playing with it, and we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, maybe we could compromise on our values a little. Maybe we judged you a little too harshly. Next thing you know, it didn't take long before she was addicted to that thing, and now you can't get her off of it. So I empathize with all of you parents who say you have the convictions of making sure that your kids aren't going to be poisoned by our, technology, and we've all given in. I'm just as guilty as you are. Here's the thing, though. Being a parent doesn't come with a manual, so a lot of times you're just trying to do the best you can, and kids are relentless. Our children are high energy, and they are relentless. They don't stop. So yeah, I'll be the first to admit, when I let her play with my iPad and it kept her quiet, I was like, all right, But I'll tell you what, one thing that you can best be certain of is that I look at everything that kid looks at. She has her own YouTube account, and every single video that she looks at pops up on my devices, and I'll watch them too. So I watch everything that she watches with scrutiny, because I'll be damned if I'm going to let our kids be indoctrinated by somebody else's viewpoints. Back to the California thing. Why does that matter? Can you think of how horrific that is? That's a direct attack on Christian values. Now, the bill doesn't openly come out against Christianity, but think about it. If your family is of a religion that's against abortion, like the Catholic Church, you cannot endorse abortion, birth control, and it's biblically a sin to be LGBT. That's not to say that I want to choose my words carefully here, because it's not to say that there's anything against LGBT people, but according to the faith, it's a sin. So you can't openly endorse it, and if people are following that faith by the Bible, as the Bible states, they're more than likely not going to be raising or tolerating that kind of stuff under their roofs in their homes. So as a result, that automatically sets them against the state apparatus, which is now stating that it is abuse for you not to affirm your child's gender. I mean, I could literally sneak into your backyard with a bunch of free candy and say, hey kids, check it out, and poison them for 5 minutes. And then they could maybe get the idea in their head that they're all of a sudden, pick one of the genders, and they go inside and say, Mommy, guess what? And when you say that's absurd, you're not in my house. And then your kid gets the idea, I'm going to call CPS on you. I have a friend whose 8-year-old threatened to call CPS on them. So it happens. Trust me. Where these kids get these ideas from, I do not know. But they get these ideas. And when they get them, it is now a crime, or it's considered child abuse to not affirm their silly nonsense. And this is why I'm dead set against any kind of sexual education for kids under a certain age. Now, what's the right age? I don't know. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't care what your age is. I don't think it's the state's business to be indoctrinating my kids at any age. That's the parents' job. Now, granted, I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about these things, and I had to figure all this stuff out for myself. I vaguely remember sexual education, and I vaguely remember it in a Catholic grade school being kind of a birds and bees thing. Like, this plugs into that, and this happens, and how's that? You got a kid. It's like it was a really real basic sexual education, and it was more about self-care and the dangers, especially with girls, about getting pregnant, that kind of thing. And I barely remember the class, so it didn't even leave an impression upon me. So, but now, some of the stuff that they're teaching in some of the parts of this country, California, it's so sexually explicit, it wouldn't have been found in pornography when I was growing up. And you're supposed to just affirm your kids? Are you kidding me? All of this stuff is turning me into an angry curmudgeon. I'm getting too old. I'm going to be 49 this year. My kids are 8 and 11. I don't know. I can't keep up with the world. I cannot keep up with this world. But I can tell you, I know demonic when I see it. I know indoctrination when I see it. A whole month of Pride. This is getting ridiculous. It's too much. We're talking about the veterans who landed at Normandy and fought in the blood-soaked fields of Verdun, and the Marines who were fought so viciously and so hard that they were called Tunfenhänder by the Germans, and we were given our name Devil Dogs. Guys that fought in the trenches of World War I. Real men. We saw things so horrific. No human in current incarnation will ever have to experience anything like what these guys had to go through. And they get one day, all right, man, you want to go down to Savers and get 50% off a used pair of jeans? Well, hey, sign me up. Meanwhile, a whole month. Okay, we get it, guys. When I was growing up, it was a legitimate thing to want to be recognized equally under the eyes of the law. And, I've often talked about my opinions as far as like the state having any ability to say who or can't get married. I don't think the state should have any say in that whatsoever. My issue with Roe versus Wade is that the federal government should have never had any say in that either. That was always supposed to be rights that were granted at the state level, constitutionally speaking. Now, I'm not talking about morally whether it's right or wrong, although as a Christian, obviously I'm pro-life, but from a government standpoint, it's just one of those things where I don't believe the government should have any say in marriage or the autonomy of a woman's body or any kind of medical, that's from a religious standpoint, the argument's pretty clear. Abortion's murder. I'll come out and say that right now. Now, my wife and I have debated. She's pro-choice, and her argument is more of extreme medical situations, rape, incest, and I think that it's a complex issue, and there are always debates to be had, and there's never such thing as a 100% right or wrong argument. But I've always made the argument that you cannot base the laws of society on the outliers or the smallest percentage of cases. I don't really want to get into abortion, trust me. I don't want to go. That's a different conversation. But as with anything, a lot of the times what the left does is they'll make their arguments based on outlier cases. They'll take the smallest percentage of the fringest cases, like rape and incest, which make up like less than a percentage of all abortions, and they'll argue the rule based on the exception. You know what I mean? And to me, that's just a bad faith argument because they're using that to shut down conversation. Now, a whole month of Pride, why is it too much? They won. They got the right to be married and to be recognized at a federal level, and we all accepted it. The pendulum moved. The Overton window moved. And it was said then that this will not stop. They'll just keep taking and taking and taking. And we all thought, no, I mean, like I said, we've all got friends and families in the LGBT community. So most conservatives, even though the news spins us as these, extremists that are, they want to start roving death patrols and go around hunting queers. Hey, mom, boys, most of us are not like that. And we're not the dumb hick rednecks that they try to pass us off as. Most of us are extremely educated. The funny thing is that I was on a debate team, and I can't get a leftist to debate me for anything and I know I would love to because I know their arguments better than they do because I've actually thought their positions out, whereas they have not. And when you're in debate, often they'll present you with a topic, and then they'll flip a coin to see if you're going to argue for or against it. So guess what that means? You have to be able to make a persuasive argument for either position. And that's something we practiced. And a lot of people on both sides have not really thought their positions through. They hear something, they know they don't like it, so they're against it, and that's their argument. They haven't really thought the whole thing through. Well, often the criticism leveraged against anybody, the conservatives, is that we're just a bunch of dumb, uneducated rednecks, and that we should defer to people that have gone through academia and got their degrees. And a lot of people on the left have gone and gotten their degrees. However, their degrees are worthless, and any person with a little bit of time on their hand could get a better education from a public library. Like, they're worthless degrees. And these people, they think that what you have on paper dictates your level of intelligence, and if you don't have that, then you shouldn't even be able to speak. This whole month of Pride thing is it's ridiculous. The government and the corporations are colluding, and they're using the LGBT they're using you guys as pawns to further their agenda. Now they're trying to keep us divided, and they're trying to keep us split in this country, so it just keeps becoming more and more and more. Why is it when these companies are losing billions of dollars? Disney has lost billions trying to push their ideology. Bud Light is pretty much not even a solvent brand anymore. Target has lost billions of dollars, and yet these companies still keep doing it. So there has to be a reason, and the reason is not money. I don't know if it's this ESG bullshit, and that's really how they're getting their funding. I don't know if on paper the money that they're losing is really that big of a deal to them, because it obviously can't be, because they keep pushing it. So I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that they are pushing an agenda, and I don't believe for a second corporate interests give a crap about either side. I'm trying to do research into this ESG score stuff, and I know that it's how a lot of companies are securing funding, and I know it has a lot to do with investment firms and things of that nature. And so there's an incentive for these companies, for sure, to, push a message. We'll call it the woke message, but it's basically an equity message. Environmental social governance. And I know, like say you're an oil company and you are toxic, you're spewing toxins all over the place, you would lose points for environmental, but you can make up credits by pushing ideology. So it makes sense for them on some level to try to push a message to offset things that are costing them. So it's like where a company should be environmentally conscious, they're using woke ideology to offset. Does that make sense? I know it's so bizarre, and I'll be the first to admit that that's kind of a new thing to me, and I'm not really knowledgeable on it, but I've been trying. I just started researching it, so I'm going to really dive into this whole ESG thing and figure out what's going on there. But I suspect that that's at the heart of this whole pride movement, where, just like everything else, it got commandeered by corporate interests, and now it's being used, basically to divide us, and it's at the heart of the culture war. And I'm just frankly getting sick of it, and I'm really hoping that people will start standing up, and we are starting to see that people are standing up. The question is it enough? Is it too late? Can we affect change? But regardless of whether it is or isn't, I think it's our duty to just we've got to stop, feeding the beast. We need to stop supporting movements that hate us and our way of life. And they're, just a whole month of anything is too much. Anything. It's enough already. I'm just done with it. I don't know how you guys feel. I'm just sick of it. I'm just sick of seeing it every day, hearing about it every day, listening to it affect everything that I like and everything I consume. Every single thing, including gun manufacturers. Heckler and Koch, I'm looking at you. It's a poisoning every facet of our society, and enough is enough. It's insulting to those who have come before, who have genuinely sacrificed for this country to make it what it is, and to give these people the rights to be whatever they want to be for, you got to take the good with the bad, I suppose. But here's the thing, with rights come responsibilities. And I absolutely support freedom of speech. I support your freedom to say, be, and do anything you want, whether I agree with it or not. But that doesn't mean I have to endorse it on a personal level, on a moral level, on a philosophical level. I can still use my freedom of speech to speak against it. And I think if we all did that, maybe they would stop jamming it down our throats, and maybe we could start taking some of this country back.